This is lesson 2 of module 2. I will express mass measurements in terms of a smaller unit. In lesson 1, we were expressing length measurements in terms of a smaller unit. Today we are expressing mass. Mass is another term for how much weight something is or how much space it takes up. Okay, it's a scientific term. It's also a mathematical term. It means how much something weighs. All right, so let's take a look at our problem set. Go ahead and write your name, and then let's take a look at number 1. The directions say, complete the conversion table. I'd like for you to go ahead and try to do all of this conversion table by yourself. If you completed the Zern lesson, then you will have had plenty of practice with this, and you should be able to do this all by yourself. But if you get stuck, press play and I'll help you. Okay, so let's take a look here at our very first answer. 3 kilograms is equal to 3,000 grams because 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. So if I'm going backwards, I would have 4 kilograms. Going the other way, be 17,000 grams, 20 kilograms, and 300,000 grams. If you didn't get some of these right, I want you to stop what you're doing and I want you to fix them and I want you to think about, how are these answers coming to be? It's kind of like these are the thousands. This is how many thousands there are in the number. So this is almost like unit form. So you can think of kilograms as saying 1,000 and grams is kind of like the standard form. And kilograms is there's 3,000s, so that's 3,000. That's kind of the way I think of it. All right, so we're going to need that information whenever we get ready to do number 2, where we're going to convert the measurements. So if 1 kilogram and 500 grams, we're trying to turn it into all grams. So if 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams, then 1 kilogram and 500 grams is equal to 1,500 grams. Again, you should have had some practice with this in the Zern lesson. All right, let's do one more together. So this is 3,000 grams. I'm going to write it up here. So we've got 3,000 grams plus 715 grams, which is going to be 3,715 grams. I want you to try to do the next 4 by yourself. Again, if you get stuck, you can always press play and I'll help you. Okay, so let's take a look at C. So 17 kilograms is equal to 17,000 plus 84. So this is 17,084 grams. So you just have to write that in standard form. Same thing with this one, 25,009 grams. So you have to write it in standard form. In this one, we're just going backwards. 7,000 is equal to 7 kilograms and 481 grams. And then F would be 210,090. All right, so let's take a look at problem 3. All right, so now we're going to do a little bit of solving. So you can see here that we have a subtraction problem, and we're using grams here. So we have 3,715 grams minus 1,500 grams. So there are a couple of ways that we can do this, and you saw in the Zern video, they were trying to show you a couple of strategies that you could use to subtract. One strategy would be to just use the standard subtraction algorithm. So you could just take 3,715 and subtract 1,500 and solve. Let's go ahead and use this approach to subtract. Okay, so when I look at this problem, I'm ready to subtract in every single category. So it's pretty simple. We can just say 5, 1, 2, and 2. So the answer is 2,215 grams. Let's take a look at B. So B, we have kilograms minus grams. So we can change these kilograms into grams. So that would be 1,000 grams minus 237 grams. I'd like for you to pause the video and do the subtraction by yourself, and then we're going to come back and check together. Okay, so let's take a look at the difference that we found when we subtracted. So you can see that I was not ready to subtract in the ones place. So I had to go all the way to the thousands and decompose 1,000. That became 10 hundreds. I decomposed 100. That became 10 tens. And I decomposed a 10, and that became 10 ones. And that gave me a difference of 763 grams. If you didn't get this answer, I want you to see where you made your mistake, and then I want you to fix it. All right, so let's take a look at C. It says express the answer in the smaller unit. Which one of these is smaller, kilograms or grams? Well, grams are smaller, so we're going to express our answers in grams. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. We can add kilograms and kilograms, and grams, or we can just go ahead and convert the kilograms to grams before we ever add. Let's go ahead and do that for this problem. So this 25 kilograms would be 25,009 grams. 24 kilograms, 991 grams, would be 24,991 grams. I want you to go ahead and find the sum, and then let's come back and check together. So I got 50,000 grams, and I'm going to leave this grams because it says to answer it in the smaller unit. So let's take a look at D. If you feel like you can do this subtraction and leave it in terms of the smaller unit, go ahead and pause the video and try to do it by yourself. If you'd like to do it with me, or at least let me help you get the problem set up, then let's do it together. All right, so this would be 27,650 grams minus 20,990 grams. So now I'm just going to subtract. So I can subtract the ones, but I cannot subtract the tens, so I'm going to decompose 100, and that's going to give me 15 tens. I'm not ready to subtract in the hundreds, so I'm going to decompose 1,000, and that gives me 15 hundreds. I can subtract in the thousands and in the 10,000s. All right, so now I'm ready to subtract. So I have 0, 6, 6, and 6. So I have 6,660 grams, and I'm going to leave those as grams. Now, if you'll notice for E and F, our directions have changed a little bit. It says express the answer in mixed units. That means they want this to be in kilograms and grams. That's a mixture of both. So let's take a look at E. So first of all, we're going to subtract. So I'm going to go ahead and change this over to grams because I'm subtracting grams. So I've got 14,505 grams minus 4,288 grams. So let's go ahead and find the difference here. So if you want to go ahead and subtract by yourself, let's go ahead and pause the video and see what we get when we subtract. Okay, so when I subtracted, I ended up with 10,217 grams, but it says express the answer in mixed units. So I have to change this back into kilograms and grams. Well, 10,000 grams is equal to 10 kilograms, and then I would have 217 grams left over. I'd like for you to try to do F all by yourself. If you get stuck, don't sit there for 10 minutes looking at the problem. I want you to go ahead and press play, but I want you to pause the video and at least try to set this problem up by yourself, and let's see how you do. Okay, so you can see that before I added, I changed 5 kilograms, 658 grams to 5,658 grams. And then when I added these together, I ended up with 63,139 grams, and I converted that to 63 kilograms and 139 grams. All right, let's take a look at a couple of application problems. It says here, use a tape diagram to model each problem. So that means that after we read, we're going to draw a tape diagram. Then it says solve using a simplifying strategy or an algorithm. That's going to be our number sentence. And then write your answer as a statement. That's going to be our word sentence. Now it says, one package weighs 2 kilograms, 485 grams. Another package weighs 5 kilograms, 959 grams. What is the total weight of the two packages? I bet you could go ahead and draw a tape diagram and solve this problem all by yourself. I'd like for you to pause the video and try to do as much of this problem by yourself as you can. If you get stuck, press play and I'll explain it to you. Okay, so this is how I set up my tape diagram. I had two packages and I was trying to find the total. So when I have two parts and I want to know the whole, then I'm going to use addition. So when I added these two together, I converted both of these weights or masses to grams, and then I got 8,444 grams. So I wrote my sentence, the total weight of the two packages is 8,444 grams. I went back and looked at the problem and it didn't tell me whether to put my answer in terms of the smaller unit or in mixed units. So I just left it as grams. You could have also said 8 kilograms, 444 grams, and that would have been correct also. If you got your answer using a different strategy but our answers are the same, then awesome, you just thought of a different way to solve the problem. All right, let's take a look at number 5. So we're going to read, we're going to draw a tape diagram, we're going to write a number sentence, and we're going to write a word sentence. Together, a pineapple and a watermelon weigh 6 kilograms, 230 grams. If the pineapple weighs 1 kilogram, 255 grams, how much does the watermelon weigh? Again, I think that you can solve this problem all by yourself. I want you to at least try to solve some of the problem. If you get stuck and you don't know where to begin, you can always press play and I'll walk you through it. But I want you to try to do it by yourself. Something magical happens in your brain when you try to solve problems all by yourself, even if you can't solve the whole problem yet. Just by trying, it makes your mind grow so much more than just copying. Okay, so this is what my tape diagram looked like. I knew that together, the pineapple and the watermelon weighed 6 kilograms, 230 grams. And I knew how much the pineapple weighed, but I was missing the weight of the watermelon. So if I know the total and I know one part, but I'm missing a part, then I have to use subtraction to find the answer. So I converted this to grams. And I converted this to grams, and I got a difference of 4,975 grams. So when I wrote my answer as a statement, how much does the watermelon weigh? The watermelon weighs 4,975 grams. Okay, number 6. So I believe you pronounce this is a Spanish name. I think you pronounce it Javier, but it's a name, so if you mispronounce it, it won't change the outcome of the problem. So Javier's dog weighs 3,902 grams more than Bradley's dog. Bradley's dog weighs 24 kilograms, 175 grams. How much does Javier's dog weigh? All right, so it says here that Javier's dog weighs more than Bradley's dog. So I'm going to make my total here to be Javier's dog. I'm going to put a J for Javier. I know that Bradley's dog weighs 24 kilograms, 175 grams, and Javier's dog weighs this much more, 3,902 grams. I want to know how much Javier's dog weighs. I want you to take a look at our tape diagram, and I want you to think about what you would do to solve for Javier's dog and complete this problem. Okay, so if I have two parts and I'm missing the total, then I'm going to use addition to solve. So when I added these two numbers together, I got 28,077 grams. So Javier's dog weighs 28,077 grams. I could have also changed this to 28 kilograms, 77 grams, and that would be correct too. All right, so if you are right here at number 6, it is okay for you to stop here and go ahead and try to do the exit ticket. If you have time and you want to go ahead and do number 7, then you can stay with me and we'll do number 7 together. All right, the table to the right shows the weight of 3 grade 4 students. How much heavier is Isabel than the lightest student? So first of all, which one is the lightest student? Let's see here. So this would be 35. Well, we know it's not Isabel. So who is the lightest here between Irene and Sue? Let's think about how much Irene would weigh in grams. This is 29,038 grams. This is 29,238 grams. So which one would be the lightest? Well, Irene, not by a lot, but by a little bit. So we want to know how much more heavier is Isabel than the lightest student. So let's take a look at our tape diagram. So we know that Isabel weighs 35 kilograms. And we know that Irene weighs 29 kilograms and 38 grams. We want to know how much heavier is she than Irene. So we're trying to figure out what is this extra weight? What would you have to add to Irene to get to the total of Isabel? So I'm going to put an I here for my variable. So if I know the total and I know a part, what am I going to do to find the missing part? I'm going to subtract, right? Well, because this is kilograms and I'm subtracting grams, I'm going to convert all of this to grams and then I'm going to find the total. I'd like for you to pause the video and try to do the rest of this by yourself. Okay, so you can see that I use subtraction here to find the difference. And I had to do quite a bit of decomposing because I had all of these zeros. I had to go over to this thousand and decompose 1,000. That gave me 10 hundreds. I decomposed 100. That gave me 10 tens. I decomposed a 10. That gave me 10 ones. And then I had to come back over here and decompose a 10,000 so that I could subtract in the thousands. So I ended up with 5,962 grams. So Isabel is 5,962 grams heavier than the lightest student. So I hope that you've learned today. The main thing that I want you to remember is that 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams, and that when you're converting from one to the other, you can use place value, and you can think of these as being unit form, and this as being standard form, and kilograms being 1,000. And that's actually what kilo means. It means 1,000.